I have been a student for over 2 decades of my life. And at the same time, I love tech. And in this video, I'm going to talk about 11 pieces of tech that I would recommend if you're going into college or perhaps getting a master's, and this tech has served me well. So let's get started. Alright, I'm going to cover this tech in no particular order, but I do think the most essential piece is your laptop. Now this is the Apple MacBook M2 Pro. I just got it a few months ago, and my philosophy on a laptop is you should get as expensive of a laptop as you can. Now it's not about expense in itself, but it's about performance. I sit on my laptop for about 4 to 5 hours a day, and probably used to sit more because right now I have a separate M1 studio in my lab. So I'm lucky to have two beautiful and powerful machines. So given that I spend, and perhaps you will spend so much time on a laptop, it's maxed out as much as you can, and you're going to probably end up using it for a long while anyway. So it's a good strategy, I suppose, to invest in a good laptop. Now I am a Mac guy, I am an Apple guy, and you'll see a lot of Apple products here. But it's really your choice. Maybe you are in a discipline where you need more Windows stuff. Maybe you need to use more Microsoft related stuff, and then or perhaps you are more in computer science where Linux may also be a nice fit. I'm agnostic to the brand per se. I personally prefer Apple, and I prefer the MacBook Pro, but there's also like MacBook Airs and lower versions of MacBook Pros that you can get, and I highly recommend splurging on a laptop because that's going to be your best friend, and you're going to write all your assignments in it, you're going to do all your paperwork, quote unquote, in it, you're going to write emails on it, but you get the idea. You're going to use your laptop a lot, you're going to stay on it a lot. So I would say, as much as you can, invest in this beautiful piece of equipment. Alright, speaking of a laptop, number 2 is a phone. Now this is the iPhone 13. We're currently in the iPhone 15 era. A product red, I got it for a bit of a discount. I think you should spend a lot on the laptop, which I just showed you. And I've personally never really had the top of the line flagship iPhone. I prefer to have an iPhone just because it syncs up well with the Apple ecosystem. I understand that's also a business thing for Apple, but hey, life works out. I, for the most part, had really old and small iPhones because my hands are kind of small. And this one is the biggest and the most latest iPhone I've had. This is iPhone 13. You don't need to have a fancy one, but I do recommend, if you are going with the Apple's ecosystem, that even if you get an old iPhone, that will sort of help sync the ecosystem a bit better. What are some concrete examples of that? So let's say sometimes I have to copy something on my iPhone and put it on the Mac. You can literally just put copy here and you can directly paste there without worrying about how that gets transferred. And so it's kind of cool. Also, things like the AirPods, which would be my next recommendation, switches automatically when you go from an iPhone to the Mac or any other Apple device for the matter. So my second recommendation would be to get a phone. It doesn't have to be the best, it doesn't have to be spectacular, it doesn't have to be with 10 cameras, but it will be a device that you're going to use a lot for communication, for quick responses and quick email checking and that kind of thing. And if you have other smart gadgets around, it's going to be a dashboard for that. So man, getting a phone, and if you're in the Apple ecosystem or any other ecosystem for the matter, to stick to that ecosystem, although I know it can be a bit of a drain on the pocket. Alright, the third recommendation I have, it's also quite essential, is the AirPods. These are the AirPods Original Pro. So I know there's a newer one out there, but they work quite well. This is actually quite an important device. It might seem like, sort of you listen to music, you chill and that kind of thing, and that's partially true. You do listen to music and you do chill with it, you do take calls, but my primary use for this is to listen to audiobooks and to listen to podcasts, and I've spent hours and hours listening to audiobooks on this one. So given how much noise it's emitting in my ears, I prefer it to be good. I prefer it to be something that I enjoy, something that's convenient. So with the Apple ecosystem, you can just take it out, put it on your ears, and it just automatically sort of knows what to do, which is quite remarkable. It's not perfect, sometimes it fails, but a lot of times it's great, and so that is why I recommend AirPods. If you're not in the Apple ecosystem, you can go with really any other good ones, but if you do plan to listen to podcasts, if you do plan to listen to audiobooks, fun fact by the way, I listen to audiobooks at 2 times the speed, and so when I have the AirPods on, I am able to get so much more reading done because 2 times the speed. So highly recommend. I also go on long walks and I'm always listening to podcasts, audiobooks. While I'm in the gym, I listen to audiobooks, I listen to podcasts. It's an important piece of tech for me at least. and I recommend you have it as well. Alright, so number 4 on the list is a bit unexpected for a lot of people, but I'm gonna recommend an electric toothbrush. And so far I have followed an order of what I think is most essential and what you should prioritize. Oral health is quite important. I tend to be susceptible to oral health problems for the particular geometry of my teeth, and so I've had so much dental work that I feel that if I can avoid even one, that would be a huge time saver. Now you don't have to get a fancy one. As I said, I tend to have oral health / dental health problems, which is why I have the most expensive toothbrush that money can buy. It's an Oral-B IO Series 9, and the reason why it's quite cool is because you have like a bunch of modes on it. And so like I have gum care, it's like intense. Let me see if I can show you, and you can change modes like that. And it also has an app that goes with it that gives you live feedback. I know, right? Crazy, as you brush your teeth. So it has absolutely ensured that I cover the outer surfaces, the chewing surfaces, the inner surfaces, and it's definitely brought a lot of my attention of how poor my brushing technique was, especially with a manual brush. And again, if it saves me even one visit to the dentist, I think that's gonna cover its cost quite easily, especially here in the UK, where dental care seems to be you have to sell a kidney for it. So I highly recommend an electric toothbrush. You don't have to get this one. It's literally the fanciest one out there. Well, there's one model that's higher than that, but you can get something that costs $20, $30, $50, and you still get quite a reasonable and quite a good brush. I do think things change a lot when you move on from a manual one to this one. So I recommend an electric toothbrush because it's an health expense, and hopefully it pays you not just in money, but it also hopefully saves you some dental pain and saves you those awkward visits to the dentist where someone is just quite literally drilling in your mouth. Alright, the next one on my list is this huge device that I've been sitting with. This is an air purifier. It's quite a cheap one. What it does is it plugs into the socket right there, and it basically purifies air. When I was young, I had a lot of problems with allergies and sneezing. I don't have it anymore, and I attribute it to my superior diet. No, I'm kidding. I don't know. I sometimes have it actually. But regardless, when I turn this on, I do feel a very noticeable increase. It's not radical, but I do feel a slight increase in the pleasure in that I have in the room. There's a little bit more cleaner feeling that you get. It could be placebo, not denying it, but there is a filter in it which you can remove, and I can visibly see some dust particles accumulated there which would otherwise be in my nose. So happy to have that. It's not the most expensive one. I just got it off Amazon, literally the cheapest one I could find. It probably doesn't even cover my entire room. So if you tend to be sensitive to dust related or air related problems like asthma, this one is quite cool. Dorm rooms tend to be quite messy. People tend to be quite unclean often, and this thing has been quite good. I've been using it for a number of years now, and it's something that I quite value in my bedroom. Alright, close enough to that is this device right here, which is an air quality sensor. Now this is the AirThings Wave. The way it works is I wave my hand over it, and if you saw a light there, it just gives you basically a red, yellow, green setup of air quality. The metrics it tracks is carbon dioxide, humidity, temperature, radon, and VOCs, which is organic compounds. This one is quite interesting, and I do recommend it. It's not that optional for me because there was this one brilliant study that showed that if you have pupils who take standardized tests, and if in one room you have high levels of CO2, and not ridiculously high, just kinda high, and then the other group you have a slightly lower level of CO2, well, healthier levels of CO2, then you find that the test scores of those pupils who have lower levels of CO2 in the room are much better without doing anything else. So your levels of alertness, your feeling of brain fog, your levels of how comfortable you feel in the room can have something to do with indoor air quality. And carbon dioxide tends to be one of the key things that I track quite actively, and this thing is absolute beast when it comes to tracking air levels and alerting it. It also syncs with an app which gives you trends over time. So if there is one particular thing that's high over time, something like radon, which tends to be radioactive, you would know it and you would be able to take action against it. So carbon dioxide has been the most important measure that I have tracked on this, but sometimes you'll also see VOCs, which is just like if you have like paints done in your room, or if you have like food lying around, something that you can visibly smell is quite a good measure I've found in my personal experience. But yeah, something something I recommend. This is the AirThings. It's a bit expensive, but has been worth it. I'm pretty sure there are cheaper ones around and you should get it. You have to also realize, by the way, in case price has been one of the things that's been putting you off in this video, is that I'm at the end of my scholarship career. I'm the end of my studentships. And at this point, I have accumulated some money here and there, and I've developed priorities in life where I can splurge a lot in some areas where I don't in others. So if you're just an undergrad, by no means did I start with all of this. So I always maximized on laptops and took help of my parents for that. But all of these air quality things and stuff like that, it's only when I've had slightly more income, so to speak, from my scholarships and otherwise. So if you're a student and you're a bit thrown away by the prices, you do not have to get all of it. I do recommend starting from a good laptop and then moving your way down from there. The other piece of tech that I want to recommend is a camera. Now I can't show you the video right now because it's right in front of me, but hopefully I would have shot some B-roll. And a camera, again, is not essential in my book, especially because phone cameras are so good these days. But it's something that I wish I had back in my undergrad. There was this one time where I won this amazing prize, the equivalent of a valedictorian in the US. And I have no photos of it. The only video I have is like painfully pixelated. So it's a moment I feel that I have lost in some ways. Now, of course, I know there were people around, people saw it, but really it would be nice to have some like high quality photos of those kinds of events. And then events where I was with friends, events where I would have loved to see how I looked and how I've changed over the years, and maybe have some videos around it. Of course, if you want to do YouTube, if you want to do any sort of content creation, then a camera is quite essential. So I recommend getting a camera. I use the Canon M50 MII. It's a mirrorless camera, so it's slightly smaller and it's therefore more portable. It has good face tracking and those kinds of things, so that helps with autofocus and that kind of thing. And if you do get a camera, I also recommend getting a microphone. So this is a lavalier microphone which clips right to your collars. I recommend something like that. It's really cheap, these things, less than $10 sometimes. I also do a podcast, so I have some more fancier microphone, like the one I'm recording from right now is a microphone called DAT V mic. It's a shotgun microphone. And then I have a bit of a bigger condenser microphone, which I exclusively use for the podcast. It's been with me for over a decade now as well. So, you know, these investments, I spent maybe $50 on it, and it's essentially lasting me for over a decade. So boom, some kudos to some value for money there. All right. Now this also falls in the non-essential category, but this is essentially a mattress cooler. So this device sits besides my bed, and it sends these two projections to my mattress, which can receive these. And what it does is set the temperature of the mattress cooler than the temperature of the room. So this is a summer thing. I don't have any use for this in the UK, which is why it's unplugged. But when summer comes, I tend to be a bit of an insomniac every now and then. And also I tend to physically exercise and cycle and that kind of thing. My body is constantly sore, and I find that when I use this at night, I wake up much more refreshed. My muscles are much more relaxed. And so there's a way more expensive version of this called I think 8 Sleep or something like that. I don't have the money to get that, to be honest, but this is a relatively cheaper version of that, at least a tenth of the price. But the only function it does, it cools it down. It doesn't it's not smart or anything, but the average temperature that you need at night for good sleep is 18 or 17 degrees Celsius. Right now it's perfect in the UK, but in the summer it's quite hot. And this helps get the temperature down, and therefore helps you recover better and helps you get better sleep. I noticeably fall asleep sooner when I have this on. Exciting. And I suppose the final one I want to wrap up with is a bit of a surprise. Oh, honorary mention to the watch. It's absolutely not essential. It's completely, I've gone days without it and really nothing changes. But when I do have it, it helps to track some fitness stuff. It helps to make payments here. It makes the payments process really easier. So if you have the money, go for it, but by no means is it essential. And so the final one I want to put here is a bit of a surprise. I don't even know if this counts as tech, but it's genuinely quite cool. It's the Dishmatic utility utensils cleaner, plate cleaner, that kind of thing. And the reason why it's quite cool, it's inessential of course, but it stores the liquid dispensing thing in its handle. So whenever you wash dishes, it actually dispenses a small amount of it every time. So you don't have to bother around putting that liquid thing in. It's kind of cool. It also has a nice handle. It goes in. Honorable mention. I hope this does not take away from the seriousness of the rest of the video. Alright, so this has been fantastic. I hope you learned something from my tech choices. Hope it helped you make some tech choices if you are entering university or entering a master's course or something like that. Hopefully some of these tech choices will help you have a more productive, more healthier, and ultimately a more happier student experience. Alright, this is Sankalp signing off.